Today's episode is brought to you by FRW Studios, a damn fine design studio as fresh and authentic as the beer you brew. FRW Studios has created killer can designs for dozens of brewers we love, including The Lost Abbey, The Hop Concept, Port Brewing, and so many other craft favorites. Creative director Julie White has happened to design the 15th anniversary Stone Brewing's book, as well as over 20 books for the Brewers Association. In fact, the Brewers Association says Julie is authentic, creative, reliable, and hands down one of the best graphic designers they've worked with. So send them your brand and they'll send you back an original design that fits it or takes it to the next level if that's what you're into. Hop on over to unitedwedrink.com/FRW Studios to see what the buzz is about. And while you're at it, download FRW's Crash Course in Branding for tips and tricks of the trade. Everyone who downloads the PDF will automatically qualify for a chance to win a custom design for your next project. Now that's something to drink about. You make the beer taste good. FRW Studios makes it look good. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that will make you fall asleep quicker on New Year's Eve than Jenny McCarthy in Times Square. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I believe ugly sweaters should be involved in more holidays, and that Douglas fir would be an amazing cologne scent. I'm joined by my two co-hosts of the show. First up is a man who you should hope to never see dressed like Baby New Year's. It's Phil Palmisano.
I actually dressed as that for one Halloween. It was amazing. I think there's I was Baby New Year's with a giant foam cowboy hat. Just think about that one.
It's a giant cowboy hat. It's funny.
That was about it.
My other co-host not only makes a better buffalo chicken dip than you and anyone you know, but also makes a killer jambalaya and some pretty decent beer. His name is Joel Codner.
Who the hell is Douglas fir?
It's a tree.
Ah. I'm not much of a landscaper.
It's like Tommy Boy rubbing the pine trees under his armpits for deodorant.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone once again for joining us, and continue to join us. Tell a friend, family member, or whoever to subscribe to the show. Really helps us out here. Before we get into talking about our main topic and our news today, gentlemen, what are we drinking? Joel, I'll start with you.
I am drinking a nice tall cup of water because I'd like to keep my head clear for this one.
Okay. What about you, Phil?
I'm drinking the same.
But is it carbonated and alcoholic?
No, it is not carbonated, nor is it alcoholic. I had way too many of those yesterday, cheering on the FAU Fighting Owls down in Boca Raton at the Boca Raton Bowl. So yeah, I'm on water today.
All right. Well, I'll be the
Miguel?
only fun one. I'm drinking a tall boy of Half Acre Daisy Cutter because when that becomes available in South Florida, I buy it.
Sweet. Is it fresh?
Yeah, it is a little over a month old.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, so let's head into the news here. I don't think we have much to go on because this time of year is kind of slow. So, Phil, why don't you take it away?
So we have two pieces of local news this week. GloverLaw.net reported on December 18th, 2019, that distributors may now replace out-of-date beers. According to Section 561.423 of the Florida statute, wholesalers may go in and replace any out of code or out of date beers from a vendor's premises and replace them at no additional charge. My question to you guys is, what are your thoughts on this? And do you envision this actually happening and going through over and over again throughout the industry?
This is, I think that this is a great step in the right direction for Florida, but is there anything that says how out of code beer is determined? Like, who says that it's out of code? The vendor, the distributor, the supplier?
Typically suppliers would. For example, I know for a fact that New Belgium has very strict date codes, very similar to some of your large domestics. With Miller Lite, Anheuser-Busch, they actually, suppliers issue the wholesalers your shelf life when you submit a new item form to the supplier. So the suppliers get it or the wholesalers get it from the suppliers.
I get that, but I know that there are sometimes going to be points where someone might fight that and be like, no, like I could just see there possibly being arguments over this, and it doesn't look like a completely clear cut and dry resolution, but it is definitely a good thing, and I hope that it does lead to fresher beer being on shelves. I do see then the issue will come up as to who will be responsible for that, because obviously a wholesaler is not going to be very happy about taking out of code beer back to their warehouse, and I could see them possibly going to the supplier and being like, hey, you want to pay for this? Because we did, and I assume there's probably there's no thing in that, because that has nothing to do with the law. That's just quarrels between a wholesaler and a supplier.
What do you think, Joel?
Well, it seems like a step in the right direction, but I understand how tricky it can be. I mean, I was just talking to a former sales rep for a certain brewery last week, and she was saying how certain accounts only want the freshest of the fresh, and it's like, well, there's a supply chain, and it's going to take time to get from all the way over there to you. It could be from way far out of state, and it's not like every single brewery is putting packaged beer that day onto the truck. It could sit around for a little bit and then go to the distributor and then go to the account. So it's like, you're already on the way to out of code by the time you're in front of the customer. So I can see a lot of fighting over this.
I completely understand where you're coming from with it. I think, if anything, it protects the retailer and it protects the supplier more so than it actually protects the wholesaler, because the wholesaler is the one that, according to the statute, has to go in and pull the product and replace it. And Mike, you brought up a great topic, which is, all right, so who's funding this? Is this coming out of margins from the supplier, from the wholesaler? Is it a negotiated deal at the end of the quarter? We're going to, revisit this. I think there's a handful of things at play here. And when I'm researching date codes and trying to make sure, I think some of that falls back on the retailer as well when it comes to properly ordering beer and making sure that you're ordering in enough inventory where it doesn't sit on the shelf and go stale at the same time.
And hopefully this leads to just keeping everyone top to bottom honest and, diligent about rotating and keeping the freshest stuff available. And, because it just seems like it's like everyone's heading for one big headache they want to avoid.
I do like that this is becoming a topic now, because it's been something that I know the suppliers have always talked about, and the retailers are always interested in it because the retailers want the freshest of the fresh. But at the same time, now having all three tiers of the 3-tier system in Florida actually having this discussion, I don't think this is the end all be all, and I think that you're going to see larger discussions spawn off of this. I really like it.
Can I ask you a quick question, Phil?
Yeah.
You oversee other states other than just Florida, correct?
Yes.
In any of those states that you deal with, do they have any laws like this?
Not to my knowledge. Beer laws, specifically in the South, are a little weird. Right now, I'm covering Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And in states outside of Florida that I represent, it really where we see the or the difference within the laws is really on the discounting side, and then what is legal to hand out at a bar, be it glassware or coasters, etc. Items of monetary value, and I'm using air quotes with that. So, to my knowledge, there's not another state in my territory existing that has something like this, which is why I think this is more of a conversation starter than it is actual like written into. It's obviously written into stone, but because it did pass. But I
that
think
how
it
Florida
just
laws are actually put on the books? They're engraved into pieces of stone.
Florida's probably a little bit more advanced, but I'm sure there's
That's
some
probably
other
how they do.
states.
That's probably how they do it in Mississippi and Utah.
I don't know. I have no clue. I would have to talk to the guilds down there, or up there. But no, I like it. I think it's a good conversation starter, and I think it's something that definitely caught my attention when you guys passed it on the Slack channel.
Does anybody feel like maybe we're jumping on this a little too late as we're hitting 8,000 breweries?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think that the conversation could have been started earlier, and I think to a degree when you're negotiating contracts, if you're not looking at a code as a line item within your contract, you're probably doing your brewery a disservice, in my opinion.
We could get into a lot of conversations talking about contract negotiations with wholesalers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, moving on, Phil.
Moving on. So another piece of Florida news. It looks like South Florida got their first pop-up brewery, I guess it is, or it would be tasting room, pop-up brewery, pop-up tasting room, pop-up beer garden, managed by a brewery. Prosperity Brewers is opening up a pop-up tasting room in Boca Raton Mall outside of the Sears location. My question to you guys are you intrigued by these pop-up breweries that are temporary spots for a month or two? And do you see this as a continuing trend in the state of Florida that we've seen in the Northeast really sort of catch some steam? I'd start with Joel on this one.
This is actually the second one I've seen. The first one was Civil Society a while back. I want to say late 2017, early 2018. They were about 2 blocks from our brewery in this little spot on Clematis Street, and not too far from where they eventually opened their West Palm brewery. And it seemed like a great concept. I mean, I remember saying to one of those guys, like, I bet people are going to start copying this, because I thought it was really cool how you don't have to travel as far to the brewery from certain places you're coming from, and could just head to the pop-up bar. It's in the middle of all these different bars and restaurants and stuff. It was a pretty cool concept, and I know they were out there for a few months and put out a lot of beer there, and I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen more of them. I think the mall is an interesting choice. Just because it seems like everything is trending away from all these big box retailers, and I don't know. Like they're in front of a wall where Sears used to be, and that used to be where I would always go into the mall when I would go there. And now that Sears is closed, they're like right next to a GameStop and a few other places. I almost didn't notice it until my wife pointed it out as we were on the way out of the mall a couple weeks ago. So I hope it's a good spot for them and a smart move. It seems like a good location, at least as far as letting them know their brewery is in town and not too far from the mall, and will drive some traffic to their actual facility.
Yeah, from the time that I spent in Philly, stuff like this is definitely a popular thing to do up there. Part of it being that the laws towards breweries allows them to do stuff like this. In Pennsylvania, you having a brewery license, it allows you to pull a permit that they call like the expo license, where you can go to a private property and you can sell your beer under your license, as long as you're asked to do so. You can pretty much run the whole thing. It could be a farm. It could be just a art gallery. It could be any number of things. And pop-up beer gardens are huge within the city itself. I remember the brewery that I worked for, we did some pop-up events at like a farmer's market, like right before the holidays. It was like 3 days of this farmer's market, and we were the only beer vendor out there. We could serve pints for people to drink on premise, and we could also sell growlers and crowlers and such to go. And I think stuff like that is really cool if your state allows for you to be able to do that, because there is a great option at making some money as long as your upfront cost and your overhead on things like that isn't too ridiculous. The mall is kind of weird because I have a feeling like that's got to be an expensive spot, but hopefully they were able to at least break even or make some money. I mean, I'm sure that they might also look at it as a marketing thing and get exposure to their brand and get people to come into their actual tap room. But I love the concept of the pop-up tasting room, pop-up brewery type of thing. I think where laws allow it, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think you stole the word specifically out of my mouth, which was exposure, because the mall in particular, I find as an interesting. I used to work in that mall in college, and it's busy. It's really good for exposure, but I can't imagine that it came cheap. As for the brewery pop-ups, I like them. I'd like to see more of them. I'll be curious to see if this trend continues. And I was unaware of the civil society pop-up. How the state will continue to look at these as they continue to progress or continue to happen. But I like it. I think it's a good way to think outside of the box in a very challenging time and climate.
Yeah.
That said, we're done for the news for the year.
For the decade.
For the decade. The decade of news is completely over, as we are calling it right now on United We Drink. Wanted to keep it light.
Nothing will ever happen.
Nope, not in the next handful of days. Nothing's allowed to happen, at least, according to us. So
Phil has decreed.
I know we all wanted to have enough freed up time to talk about the topic tonight, so wanted to jump right into it.
I hope there's some major development in seltzer in the next few days.
I will go hot mic live recording myself and kick it over to Mike. I'll give my solo take on it if that's the case.
Phil's going to like Skype call me while I'm at work, and he's like, "I'm recording this call right now. Let's talk about this seltzer news." Like, I'm in the middle of a canning run.
Doesn't matter. Nothing can stop the traction of seltzer news.
Well,
not even a canning line.
No, well, unless it's the canning line for the seltzer company and it goes down.
It's a valid point.
All right, so our main topic for the evening is a big one that we have been planning out for a while and we've been looking forward to doing, and it's a serious one, and it's one we've touched on in certain aspects in other main topics before. We are going to talk about mental health here today, and as Joel was saying, he's trying to keep a clear mind with this, so I want to hear a lot of what you guys have to say. So, Joel, can you kick things off here for us?
I'd be happy to. So first let me say that I did a little recording with the Good Beer Hunting podcast, which should be out in a couple of weeks within the release of this episode. So I apologize if I repeat myself at any point. And Mike, Phil, and I are very aware that this is not something that we can cover in less than an hour, and hopefully we'll be doing some more episodes on this. Hopefully we'll get a lot of great feedback from you guys and, respond and keep the conversation going, because it feels like a lot of times some of these conferences or seminars or podcasts or whatever it may be, they cover the topic and then they just sort of wash their hands of it and never address it again. So it's definitely one that's very important to me, and I definitely want to keep the conversation going. So, we look forward to hearing from you guys. I would, at least as far as myself, say that I definitely struggle with mental health. I have for quite a long time. I think if you know me or you follow me online, you're like, that guy is probably a little fucked up. But I think that this is a topic that we really have to talk about, and it doesn't just apply to the liquor industry, the beer industry, whatever we're in. It applies to everyone, and I think it adds an interesting angle in the sense that we make and sell alcohol, because that definitely affects your brain chemistry quite a bit, and it could be for the better and it could be for the worse, depending on how much and how often and all those things. So that's kind of my intro for the topic. I don't really know what you guys want to say about it. I think we can kind of go around and just say what we want to say and throw some stories back and forth or some advice or whatever it is.
Phil, how does this industry impact you mentally, whether it be negatively or positively, that you can directly correlate to stuff going on in this industry?
Well, I think the main thing when it comes to mental health, and we've touched on it a little bit with overindulgence in some of the previous episodes. So if you haven't listened to those, go back and check those out, because they're a good preface into us really deep diving into this topic tonight. But I think this industry in particular, and Joel is 100% right, where this doesn't correlate just in liquor or beer or wine or spirits or whatever. This is literally universal and across the board. But in our industry in particular, and this is the beverage industry in particular, I believe that we, and not saying that other industries aren't, but we have so much pressure on us, specifically in this climate and right now, that sales need to be up here, production needs to be up here. Competition is literally biting at your heels and your ankles every day, trying to find that weakness and that vulnerability to sort of take you down. And it's not a cutthroat industry by any means, and we're actually pretty friendly overall. I think the camaraderie in this industry is unlike anything that I've ever seen. But I believe that the pressure of this industry sort of separates beverage from other industries. And just like, I'm sure if you, the listener, are in a different industry and you're like, yeah, these guys don't comprehend what I do. And I think every industry has their quirks in this. Amplify this in beverage with, we're adding liquor typically to this, and it's usually not a good cocktail in the long run. Unless you can keep that sort of level-headed mental stance. And I'm super excited to eventually share some of my suggestions and how I try to cope throughout, or how I've tried to cope throughout these past, this past decade of beer industry.
The interesting thing is we deal with things that are stressful at our jobs, just like anyone else. But the thing that's very different for us is that we have direct access to a controlled substance so readily available to us. And that's something that if you're just working in an IT department, you don't necessarily, you have a boss coming down your neck. You have deadlines that need to be made. You can't just necessarily go into your kitchenette and your break room and grab a beer and try to take the edge off. A lot of us have the ability to do something like that, and that can turn into something that can turn into abuse, like we talked about in responsible consumption. And then that can mess with your mind. That can mess with a lot of things, and you can become reliant. You can become even more angry, because this is a downer. What we have here, it doesn't make you necessarily feel happy if you're not already in a happy situation. If you're down and you're drinking, you're gonna be probably even more down after you have a couple beers, and your mental state on what is going on might be even shittier. That thing that upset you and pissed you off is going to probably piss you off more, and then you're going to find other things to nitpick and be pissed off about. And I've certainly been there. Like I myself, like dealing at one brewery with having to increase production when sales are actually down, and being told we need to sell more, and I'm trying to give reasons or ways how we can try to sell more, and being told no, that's not the way, find other ways. And then like being able to just walk 20 steps and go to the tap room and take a 5-ouncer of beer doesn't fucking help. It doesn't. Like, you want to think that it does,
but it does temporarily, and I think that's and sometimes that is the start of some of this.
Yeah.
Where we all utilize it as a crutch.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, then you go home, and then you open up a can or a bottle more, and it just, I've dealt with that myself, and it's not a fun situation to be in, especially if maybe you're going through some stuff in your own personal life, all compounded together. It can lead to some very depressing nights at your house or wherever you're at. And I've been there. It's not fun. I didn't like it. Luckily, I was able to find ways to better my mental state in my life and get to be slightly better. I'm not perfect. I still have days where shit sucks and I hate it, and I wish there were better ways of living my life, but it's still a struggle. Yeah. Joel, do you feel that way, or what? I honestly don't know how to transfer off of that to one of you guys.
It's tough topic to find segues. No, I agree with a lot of that, and I think that being in an industry that we love so much, it makes it that much harder when things go wrong and get disappointing. You know, if I were to have a rough day at the cubicle, it was tough and it hurt and it sucked, to be feeling like you're trapped there. But at the same time, I didn't really take it home with me that much, at least not the work part of it. I'd be at home upset, like, this job sucks and I don't like it and I don't want to go back tomorrow. But I think it's harder when it's a job you do want to go back to tomorrow and you're struggling with certain things. It makes those letdowns that much harder. And I'm, dealing with various things right now that I don't really want to get into too much on the podcast, but I'd be happy to talk to people personally about. But one thing I said on the Good Beer Hunting podcast that I'm happy to repeat is that when you have a broken bone, or you get cut, or you're sick, you know what to do, you know who to call, you know where to go. When it comes to mental health, it's a lot harder to deal with because it's in your own head, and sometimes you feel like there is no one to go to, there is no one to call, even if there is. Shit can get dark sometimes, and you really don't know the way out. And that isolation, that isolating feeling makes it that much harder. And, there are many different times where I've just been like, I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to call. I don't think anyone wants to hear this shit, that kind of stuff. And, I'm really glad we're talking about this. I'm really glad the industry's talking about it, even if it's not that often, because so many people, there's a stigma to it, like people don't want to get into it and talk about it and open up about it because they don't want to be looked at differently or possibly jeopardize their own relationships or career. So, once again, it just ties into that isolating feeling, like you don't know what to do and how to solve it. And I think like just talking about it and letting people know they're not alone, just hearing those words are so fucking huge. Like that can really save somebody, just letting them know. And especially now, like in the holidays, people get down, there's seasonal affective disorder, there's just, the stress of dealing with gifts and family and traveling and all the crazy shit that goes along with the holidays. Is as bright and cheerful as it is, it can be a downer as well for some people. So it's kind of good timing on this topic for us, but it's definitely a 24/7 thing for a lot of people.
And the end of the year not only culminates with holidays, whichever one or any that you actually celebrate, but the end of the year when it comes to usually sales and barrelage productions and taxes and all of these other things that are adding into it professionally. I know myself in particular, I found myself talking to one of my mentors within the past 2-3 weeks. Just, I definitely am feeling the pressure of the end of the year and then the pressure of personal life and wanting to make sure that I get ahead of it, I think, more so than anything else, and stay ahead of it where it doesn't just sort of bubble up and boil over for me in particular. And this is a one-off situation. I deal with things completely differently than the way that the two of you deal with things.
Yeah, and if I could get ahead of certain things, I know that I would probably be in a better position mentally when it comes to a lot of stuff. So, but sometimes that is hard, and like you said, that's a thing that individuals will deal with better from point to point. Joel said something that resonated with me, and that is the kind of the fear that you're alone in this whole thing, and probably one of the biggest things that I myself have struggled with in this is feeling like I'm not good enough to, like, if I don't have this job, then what do I have? That I just don't have options out there, which I know truly is a bunch of bullshit, but it still creeps up, and I'm like, when I was going through the stuff recently, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a little freak out moment to where I was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Who the fuck wants me? No one's hiring for people like me. And I know that that's utter crap, and I got over it eventually, but thoughts like that pop up in my head and they'll hold on for a little bit, and it gets me depressed. It gets me thinking like, well, that's it. That's my time in this industry. Time to go back to fucking IT or get a design job working for some medical company designing shit that I don't fucking like. And I know that that's crap. I know it, but it doesn't make it any easier to get past thinking about that. And that's definitely my biggest issue mentally with probably my life, and definitely with this industry, is just the fear that I am not good enough and I should be happy for what I have, and I am, but like, yeah, that's my tough thing.
And I know what you're saying because I deal with similar things, and I also have sort of an imposter syndrome where someone will come up to me and compliment me, And like somebody the other day told me, they moved here from Kansas City and they tried my Saison and they said it reminded them of Tank 7. And I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, it's not even remotely close. But, it's a nice compliment and everything. But, you don't want to believe them. I don't know if it's like a self-esteem thing or whatever it is, but sometimes for me it's really hard to accept a compliment. It's kind of goes into a self-worth thing. And like one time a very old lady from Germany told me that my hef reminded her of home, and I was like, well, that's wonderful and you're crazy. Like, to me it was like I wouldn't accept it. Like to me I thought she was insane. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to accept those things. Even when you win an award, you're like, really, me? Why me? Like, there's so many others so much better.
And I completely understand where you're coming from with that, but do you feel that you personally utilize some of the sort of push some of those compliments off so that it helps drive you and not get complacent with where you are?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't think I necessarily do it on purpose, and I've sort of been guided to not necessarily accept those compliments, but just kind of be in the moment and say thank you and not brush it off as much. And like to be perfectly honest, even if in my mind I'm still rejecting it, I don't think I'll ever be complacent, because I've never forgotten the feeling of being in a cubicle under fluorescent lighting all day long, surrounded by people I can't relate to, in a job I hate. I mean, I used to literally sit there and fantasize about my own funeral. Like, I had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I felt totally trapped. So that's sort of my driving force. I've never forgotten it. And you'll see some people online, like, whenever I'm having fun or I'm doing something beer related that I'm really enjoying and telling people about, sometimes the people that have been following me for a really long time are like, oh, I miss old angry Joel. Like, I want to hear him vent about work and say all those crazy things he used to say. And I was like, I don't fucking miss that guy at all. Like, that, he's no. Still there. He's still there a little bit, but I'm not here for your entertainment. Like, I may say some crazy shit online, but like, I'm not trying to be in that mindset at all.
Like, you and I, Joel, definitely have had this conversation before, but I might as well just kind of touch on it a bit. Here is, I feel like sometimes people look at you or other people who have this online persona, using the air quotes thing, of being a curmudgeon or a negative person, and see it as like this funny thing, and then try to encompass that themselves and be like, it's cool to be negative. It's cool to be mad all the time. It's fucking not. It's exhausting to be mad. It's exhausting to be negative. Like, I don't like it. And I get that way too often. I try to find a way to be more positive about myself. And sometimes I do fall back into negativity. And it's not like a comfortable fallback. It's fucking annoying to myself that I can be negative like that. And no one should want to be negative like any of that. Like, because it's why we have so many problems sometimes, is because of negative people. If we could all be a little more positive, we would all probably get along a lot easier in this world. But yeah, I see you deal with that on Twitter from time to time, and it's sad to see as a personal friend of yours that people want you to be this negative, funny guy.
Like the what do they call it? Like the sad clown or some shit?
Yeah.
Well, it's a character. I mean, really, at the end of the day, like, I know it's you personally, but you're that side of that is a character, and they want you to be on all the time, and that can be exhausting, like you guys just said.
I assume like Worst Beer Blog, when he posts something positive and he posts something about like trying to help out some breweries who had misfortunes fall upon them, and people are like, this isn't the content that I came for. like I assume that he gets tired of doing that bullshit too, and is trying to do something nice, and people jump down his throat for trying to be positive, and it's like at the end of the day, like he's a human being too, and he actually seems to be trying to be a pretty positive guy when I've heard him on like the Full Pint podcast, and I've had like some conversations on Twitter with him before. Like he seems like a pretty stand-up dude who just got into doing this one particular thing, and that's what he is kind of now known for.
Do you guys have any coping mechanisms that maybe you utilize on a daily basis that could potentially help somebody else?
Comedy. Like I feel like if I can listen to like some of my favorite comedians and laugh, it tends to make me feel better. Music doesn't usually help me because music can sometimes make me feel worse. And really, like the thing that I have gotten better with is people that I love and I care about. I used to hold in my feelings and like my depression and things to myself and didn't want to talk about it to anyone. But I've become better about that and realize that there are some really amazing people in my life that I feel like if I have something terrible going on, I can talk to them, and it does make me feel better. Like my fiance being like the number one person, because I get to see her all the time, and I feel better when I can open up and talk to her. But I mean, people like you guys as well, and my friend Kevin, those are really the best coping mechanisms, and I know that can be tough for people. Is just simply talking to someone because of things that Joel said earlier. But I do think that that's probably my best.
My problem with coping mechanisms is that I'm fully aware of them and occasionally utilize them, but I'm just not consistent. I have a very hard time with scheduling and structure and repetition, so some things fall by the wayside. 2 years ago, I was really kicking ass with like active lifestyle, good diet choices. I lost a lot of weight, and just recently my wife told me that, you know, she thought I was never happier than when I was doing all that, and I don't know how she really interpreted that, because inside I don't think I was. I know I felt better mentally in some ways, but like for me to go to a gym and exercise, like I have to go to a very dark place in my mind to really push through it and get going. It's just I use those terrible things, you know, memories, somebody talks shit to me, whatever it was, just drumming up stuff from 20 years ago if I have to. And that helps get me going. You know, I sort of feed off that, but it's not good overall. Like I wish I had better ways of getting that going. But I know for sure that diet, you know, like I know that what I put into my body also feeds my mind. I will absolutely feel like garbage mentally if I'm eating something heavy in carbs or a lot of sugar. I know now, after the roller coaster of dieting and weight loss and weight gain, that 100% diet is a huge factor. I'm not saying it's the only thing. Everyone has their own stuff, and a lot of times it is chemical imbalance or genetic. For a very long time, I thought it was genetic for me because my mother dealt with bipolar disorder and manic depression throughout different stages of her life, and I think I sort of used that as a crutch to not do the work I needed to do to get myself better mentally. I just thought it was in my blood and there's nothing I can do with it. But after, I mean, just like me, I know this sounds corny, but like just meeting you guys and all the beer people and getting into the industry, like that really changed me. I got a lot more social, went to a lot more things, because before I got into any of this, I was very much a hermit. Like I just stayed at home. I really didn't do anything with anybody. And you know, getting out, meeting people, being around positive people I didn't even know existed, that was huge for me. And then, you know, obviously trying to improve diet and being more active definitely helped. And it's the people around you. It's a lot of things. And most recently, the most consistent thing I've done as far as coping mechanism is back in September, I joined Talkspace, which is like an online therapy thing. You can have basically daily sessions. There's different tiers. Like you could just sort of do typing chat. You can pay more to do video sessions and stuff like that. But I had been in and out of therapy over, different years for not very long. It was one of those things I wasn't consistent with, didn't stick with. I sort of self-sabotaged myself and just bailed out at certain points. But one day in September, I'm just sitting at my desk. I didn't have a lot going on that day. And I just started going into my own mind and thinking about, horrible things that happened long time ago, like things that should not affect me now whatsoever. But, when you go through certain stuff, sometimes it can rewire your brain or your thought processes. And I went down this fucking rabbit hole and I felt horrible. And like, nothing happened. Nothing triggered it. I was just sitting there and just sunk into a deep fucking hole. And I thought to myself, like, why is this happening? I've got to do something about this. There's a lot of shit at stake. Like, I can't take this home. I can't let it affect my family. I can't let it affect my work. I've got to fix this. And, fortunately, my wife has like really good health insurance. I know not everybody does, and that's what makes it harder to address some of these things. But I joined Talkspace, and it's been really good. I mean, it's usually like when I was first in therapy in person, it was like once every 2 weeks, and I would go nuts because, like, let's say I see someone on a Saturday, and then something horrible happens the following Tuesday. I got to wait almost 2 weeks to talk about it again, and by then I might be over it. But I had no coping mechanism during that time, so fortunately, getting 5 days a week to just sort of go back and forth, get some good advice and learn some coping techniques or mindfulness things. I mean, that stuff really helps. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I use a support group basically, and it's not anything more than just a handful of peers and industry, and this is professionally, I should say, peers and people that I highly respect in this industry that if I do run into an issue or I do find myself sort of starting to bubble over, giving somebody a shout and saying, hey, let's do breakfast. Let's talk about this stuff. I'm sure you're dealing with something similar. Let's get it out there, get it out into the open, work with each other, support each other. That said, my little group is pretty tiny, but they're great. They're there to help me. They're there to direct me in different ways, even when we're not talking specifics and we're keeping things very general. Outside of that, music helps me personally. The gym has always been my release, to the extent where it just drives me. I like just being able to push it all out physically. Outside of that, honestly, when the three of us got together, this was an out for me. This is something for me to come in and talk about industry situations with two other people I highly respect in front of a hot mic that we're posting online. And the feedback that we've received off of this is just as much of a coping mechanism for me mentally than anything else.
I agree with that. Especially the part you said about us getting together. I mean, it goes along with what I was saying is talking to the people who I love and care about and respect. And it helps. I know that it can be one of the toughest things to do is just like admit to someone, especially someone that you love, is I have a problem. Can I talk to you about my problem? And because you maybe fear that they'll say no, or they don't have time, or they just don't have the answer or something like that, when that might not necessarily be what you need. You don't need an answer. It's just sometimes the fact that you express that issue verbally to another human being and they just listen to you, that could do so much help. That, like, the problem isn't solved, but holy shit, do I feel like that 10-ton gorilla is no longer sitting on my chest. Anyone else want to add in anything right now? I mean, we could certainly talk about this for quite a while, but anyone want to take it in a different direction or what?
Well, I think, it's important to say that, for everybody listening, I'm happy to listen to anyone who may want to, talk about whatever they have going on. To me, like, I don't have all the answers. I sometimes I feel like I don't have any, but I think just talking to someone else helps, and I'm here for anybody that wants to talk, because I know how hard it is to not have that. And like I said before, it's good to let people know they're not alone. I think one thing I really didn't mention is someone recommended to me on Twitter this, nootropics are a thing now. It's like kind of brain drugs, if you will. I don't really know how to describe it, but a lot of people take things that I wouldn't necessarily call antidepressants or anything like that, but there's a lot of like over-the-counter stuff you can find at GNC that helps focus or relieve anxiety. I started taking L-theanine for a while. Our friend Ami up in Tampa, is it, recommended that to me for anxiety, because a couple of years ago when I was at my last brewery running the brew house and managing a team, things got very stressful and I was getting a lot of anxiety and very irritable. And L-theanine, it's not a downer or a sedative of any stretch of the imagination. It's just like you take a couple and you're just right back to zero. It's really amazing. You don't even notice it take effect, but it does. And look, I'm not, we obviously have to have whatever disclaimer about, drugs, and this may work for somebody, like whatever the fucking disclaimer is. Like, I'm not recommending anybody take anything, and I'm not a doctor. I can't, prescribe shit and all that. But I also started taking something recently called Phenibut, which someone recommended. It's insane. It, like, how some people will call alcohol liquid courage. This is kind of the same, except it's more of an upper to me. Like, there's more focus. It's really weird because it takes like 5 to 7 hours to kick in. But man, like, for a very brief window of time, it makes me exactly who I wish I could be 24/7. Like, I'm empathetic and I listen and I'm more outgoing and I'm happy to talk to people I'm normally not so comfortable talking to, and it's just something I'm kind of playing with the dosage and stuff. Like I said, I'm not recommending anything. I'm just letting you know what's kind of working for me at the moment. It's not recommended, unfortunately, to take like every day, so that's a little tricky. So I kind of have to figure out what days I'll need it and what days I won't. So maybe not so much on the weekend, but more of work days when I know I've got some things ahead of me that I need to be up for. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, by no means are any of us licensed therapists or doctors. So obviously we're giving you our individual experiences and things that we can do. If you do need to talk to a professional, though, and you are in the hospitality industry in particular, there's a great group called I Got Your Back, and you can find them at igotyourback.info. You can actually just text HOPE, the word HOPE, HOPE, to 916-668-4226. They're based out of California, and they're there. It is a support group for individuals in the hospitality industry like we are that can relate to maybe what you're going through in particular. Outside of that, there's other mental health and support groups for any other industry that's out there as well. I just found this one very intriguing because they specify on the hospitality industry in particular.
That's great information to pass along, Phil, because that could really help someone out. And we'll put that information in the description of the show as well. So if anyone wasn't able to pick that up, you can find that info in the description of the show. Anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap up this conversation for now? Because like Joel said, this is not a conversation that really will ever end. Hopefully we can keep talking about it like on social media, and like Joel said, in person. If you ever have any questions, concerns, you want to talk to someone who might have an idea of what you're going through and how you feel, people like us, we're available. We can try our best to at least listen to you. Like I was saying, that just alone helps a lot of the times, is have someone there to just listen to you.
yeah, we know this is not going to be covered in one episode or 10 episodes even, but, get back to us, give us some feedback, let us know what you thought and what you might want us to address on a future episode.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up here. I think we can go into last calls now for us to be able to have that time to voice off on a particular thing and see what's bothering us. Phil, why don't you take it away?
Well, seeing that this is the last episode of 2019, my last call is basically just focused on year in review. For me, it's pretty amazing. I accomplished a lot personally, professionally. I'm honored to be back on this podcast with you guys, having fun every week now instead of every other week like we originally decided we were going to do it. 2019 was great, and I'm really looking forward to 2020. Thank you to everyone out there that actually listens, writes us, comments back, tells your friends about us. I truly appreciate it. I know these two guys appreciate it as well. And really looking forward to what the new year has to bring.
That's kind of funny because I was going to say something very similar to that. Yeah, I'm happy to be doing this show again. I know it's something that we've all kind of talked to one another about, it would be fun to do that again, but who knows when we actually have time, and somehow we've managed to make it happen. So I think that it's really cool that we have been able to put that together in 2019 and look forward to more in 2020. Joel?
I just wanted to say that, and it ties into our topic today, but I just got back from an amazing trip in Chicago, and to kind of give a quick little bit of my origin story, if you will. I am actually from Chicago. I lived there till I was about 12 and a half, and seemingly overnight, in a very short period of time, my family split up. My dad moved us to Florida, and within less than a year and a half, I had attended 4 different schools. And, when you're that age, that shit really fucks with you. And I don't know if I've ever really recovered from that. And that's a big reason of why I am the way I am, for better or worse. And every single time I went to Chicago, I always had a very hard time, leaving, because it was reminiscent of when I had to leave the first time, and I didn't want to go back to Florida. I just kind of wanted to stay where I thought my home was. And this time was a little bit different. I was at the gate of O'Hare Airport waiting to board my flight back to Florida, and I had this sort of revelation, wow, I'm not sad this time. I'm actually feeling pretty good, and I actually had some tears of joy. I always had this weird relationship going back there, because after a while and being gone for so long, I felt like I wasn't home anymore. It felt like a strange town to me. I felt like a stranger in my own hometown, and that nothing fit anymore, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I would say that I would basically just want to say thank you to Pete Anderson at Metropolitan Brewing, Kim Stewart, her boyfriend Marty at Revolution Brewing, John Laffler at Off Color. All of you guys really made me feel at home in a place that I didn't feel like was home anymore, and that was insanely huge to me, and I can't thank you enough. It completely changed the way I view where I came from, and I feel like I have a better relationship with my hometown, and I look forward to going back and having more positive experiences there, and not having all the shitty baggage attached to it. I can't tell you how much that means the world to me. So thank all of you guys, and thank you for making such amazing beers as well.
That's really awesome, Joel. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Well, that about does it here for us on this episode. If you want to talk about any of the things that we talked about in the mental health section, or just beer in general, reach out to us on social media at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. You can subscribe to this show in one of many different wonderful fashions. We're on practically all of the streaming services and podcast apps that are available there. You can also listen to us on our website, unitedwedrink.com. Buy a shirt, sticker, button at unitedwedrink.com/store. We will be back next week for our first episode of the new year. It will be a mini episode, and then after that, in 2 weeks, we will be back with our next main episode where we're going to talk about industry projections. So in the meantime, have a safe and happy new year. Enjoy yourselves out there. See you then.
Pop some bottles.
Cheers.
Prosperity Prosperity
You're making my editing on Christmas week so wonderful.